if you've ever been to a funeral, you know that when that person is recognized, they have so many amazing things that people characterize them in. For example, I went to my wife's grandfather passed away last year, and so we went to his funeral, and just the things that people said about him, how he connected with people, how he loved people, how he smiled at people, he gave them hugs and kisses, and all of these things that were described weren't the amount of followers or weren't the amount of presence he had online. Sometimes we think of this FOMO, right? You mentioned this fear of missing out. But for me, when I felt like I got my flip phone, I used that FOMO for good. I instead of focusing on missing out, I focused on meaningful opportunities. It goes back to the point of active versus passive use of technology. Active use of technology is good. It's educational. You're watching a movie with your family. You're having family time.
Looking for real stories of real people making a difference in the Grand Canyon State? Welcome to Finding Arizona podcast. We sit down with Arizona's inspiring entrepreneurs, creatives, and community leaders and give you a front row seat to their journeys, passions, and projects. Whether you're a local trying to find a hidden gem or just enjoy watching someone chase their dreams, Finding Arizona is your go-to place for authentic conversations with a desert twist. New episodes drop weekly, so hit subscribe and start exploring Arizona one story at a time.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Finding Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Jose, and every week we bring in someone very special, and today's no different. Ladies and gentlemen, today's episode is a wake-up call. Our guest is Talmage Erickson, author, speaker, educator, and native of Gilbert, who is on a mission to completely change how we think about our phones, social media, and the way it's impacting our mental health. Now, here's what makes Talmage's story different. He didn't just study this, he lived it. While most of us were growing up glued to our smartphone, Talmage had handed at a challenge at the age of 14 by his dad, a licensed counselor who was seeing the patterns of over and over again: anxiety, disconnection, addiction, emotional burnout. Instead of handing him a smartphone, he gave him a flip phone. And that decision, it flipped everything. So in today's episode, we're getting into it all: the mental health side, the social media's reality, and what we can actually do to start today to change our relationship with our phone. So today I want to welcome Talmage. Thank you for joining us today.
Jose, that's a great introduction. I hope I can live up to it.
Oh, you are fantastic. I watched you do an episode of another podcast, and I was like, he's got this. He's going to be just fine. So I really do appreciate you. We were talking a little bit off air, and I want to start with the question that typically we ask everyone is, give us a little bit of your origin story. I imagine that I just spoke a little bit about it, some of the challenges that you were given early on in your career and your childhood. But I mean, I also would like to understand, outside of that, what was your relationship like with your dad? What was his process? Because the story is that he saw the patterns come. But I mean, outside of his work, was he coming home feeling a little bit more depressed, or your encounters with him, were they kind of more subtly changing and things like that while he's noticing these things? So give us that childhood experience.
Yeah, no, you bring up a great question. And I tell the story all the time. And when I was 14, I said, Dad, I want a cell phone. Specifically, I want a smartphone. And he said, Let's take a step back here. He was a religious educator in our community as well. And so he had been counseling a lot of different people who were struggling with screen addiction, with social media comparison, with pornography, with cyberbullying. And he thought, you know what? I don't know if I want my son to fall into that trap. And so he sat me down and he said, let's take a step back. Let's start you off with a permit, if you will. Let's start you off with a flip phone. I said, that must be the stupidest idea I've ever heard. and he convinced me, and I got a little flip phone when I started my sophomore year of high school, 16 years old. And I just got a front row seat at what was happening all around me with friends, with family members, with extended family, some of the digital dangers that are out there.
Yeah.
And not to say that I was better than anyone, that I was better at technology than anyone, but I had that front row seat, and it just opened my mind a little bit to
Yeah.
what it really means to be deliberate on a cell phone and how we can use technology for good.
Yeah. That's so wonderful. I mean, again, I go back to what a decision our parents had to make for us, or like had to guide us into the next generation. And there are moments like that. Just to kind of put this out on your side and kind of relate to you on my story. So I grew up a little bit on the East Coast, and my mother's side of the family is Native American. Here in Arizona, there's a tribe up near the Four Corners called the Hopi tribe. My mom took a real big decision on putting us back on the res. And for those that know me, the culture shock was very, very big for me as a child. And so that in itself, there is a story. My cell phone kind of history is the same as yours. Really, I didn't have a smartphone. If I had a cell phone, it was definitely a flip phone. It was minutes on the phone. And I didn't get a smartphone until maybe sophomore year of college. So that was kind of a big change for me in there. But I go back to my high school years, understanding that was different, because I knew that the world had smartphones. I knew that technology was growing, but in my culture and in where I was growing up, there were no antennas to have a frequency to text or to do those types of things. So having that slowly progress and watch it progress onto the reservation, it was a different thing, but also for me, my culture or what I grew up around was, again, not something, there was texting, but it was like not as prevalent, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But yeah, my own history is that it was more of a stunted growth habit where it's like I wasn't given the thing right away. I was growing into it sort of deal. And one, I do have a question there, is the feeling of missing out for you, especially that you were in a culture or a community that had that around you more frequently, whereas I didn't feel as much like I was missing out because I didn't have as many people who were taking advantage of that technology growth. So for you, I'd ask, did it feel like missing out, or did it feel like a superpower?
I would say it's both sides of that same coin. On one side, man, I wasn't in any group chats. I wasn't in any social media involvement. I wasn't in the DMs. I wasn't a part of all these things. And that was hard. As a teenager, you always feel like you want to belong. But I didn't feel that way too much with my little flip phone. But on the other side, I think it was such a big blessing to me. Sometimes we think of this FOMO, right? You mentioned this fear of missing out. But for me, when I felt like I got my flip phone, I used that FOMO for good. I instead of focusing on missing out, I focused on meaningful opportunities.
Yeah.
And so that's what we teach people is, yes, your kids probably will feel like they're missing out, but would you rather have that, or would you rather have a present son who learns how to connect with people, learns how to look them in the eye, learns how to connect with you, their parent, and learns how to have a good time at home? So there's that trade-off. You want them to feel involved, maybe socially or virtually, or do you want them to feel present and connected in real life? And so I did feel like I had some sort of trade-off. I wasn't connected virtually, but I was able to focus on meaningful opportunities and connect with people that way.
I take solace in every time that someone came up to my parents, or my parents will pull me aside and said, we got good comments about you and how much you can look someone in the eye and have a conversation, or be respectful enough to know the etiquette of like meeting someone new. And that sort of thing really did bring me, joy and pride that my parents could have that moment. And also that people did see me in that light. So it was quite encouraging as a young man to kind of have those moments with my parents, to just know that, you are doing things correctly, or at least in the light of society, you are seen in a dutiful like manner, like you're doing right. So I move on to, you were describing in one of the conversations in the podcast that I was listening to as a blindfold coming off moment. And so for you, I would like to ask, where were some of the first things that you noticed when that blindfold moment come off, not only to you, but your friends, your environment? You were like, whoa, something is off here. So it's like, I look at it as a moment of like the blinding of light. You're like rubbing and it's like you're slowly starting to realize something's, off here. It's like, I would love that kind of not only emotional status, for you being that person, but also just kind of like taking it in one by one. It's like, I would love that description because I kind of find it very intriguing.
Yeah. No, you bring up a great point. And I would say the time that I started to look up and look around was the time that blindfold came off. We live in such a look down, tear down world. Mm-hmm. We're constantly looking down at our phones. We're constantly comparing, competing, criticizing, especially on social media. And in the moment that I felt like that blindfold came off was when I was just walking around the halls of high school. I mean, you look around and instead of looking people in the eye, you see them looking down at their phone. And so there's no connection.
Yeah.
And my goal was to try and reverse that, to try and give some people some high fives or connect with people, look them in the eye, compliment them. And so I kind of became a digital rebel, if you would go so far to say that, because I just saw the look down world that we live in. And so I tried everything I could to look up, look around.
Perfect. I mean, that's essentially what I would love for more people to understand and wrap themselves in, because I think the personalized kind of, we're humans. I think that affection or that kind of encounter is needed on a day-to-day basis. I think our brains are kind of routed that way so that we can kind of have this. That's probably, evolution too. It's like your facial features too. It's like we express with our eyebrows, we can smile, we can have all these muscle movements in our face, and all of that is a connection point to each other. Our conversations are reflected and how much we care, and the invocation of our voice is also a part of that as well. Every bit of our human factors, touch, feel, senses, all of these things can help us kind of move in a direction of like connection with one another. So we try our best to invoke as many of those things so that people can really understand us. So I think it's really important that we can, help ourselves by relearning that tool set that is our bodies, are how we communicate, how we, like you were, what you would express is like emotional regulation and things like that. I do kind of want to make sure our audience is involved in it, and particularly the older generation in their 20s, building a career, or even today we see brands that are online, and how someone going outside of, let's say, high school and moving into real life of like with real world social situations. And how do you balance using social media as a tool without letting it take over your life?
Yeah. It all comes back to the purpose. As human beings, especially in America, we pick up our phones anywhere from 144 to 178 times per day, statistically. So that's once every 5 to 7 to 10 minutes. And when we pick up our phone, the average time we spend on it, 2 minutes. Now, what does that conclude? We conclude that when we pick up our phones, we're only picking up just to pick it up to look at it, because we're not using it for any purpose. Because if we did, we would spend longer on it. Now, here's the point I make is if you have a purpose to get on your phone, you're going to use it for its purpose. And then once that purpose is done, you're going to put it aside. And so the worst ability is availability and accessibility when it comes to your screen. And I would say to the rising generation, to the people who are graduating high school, going into college, getting a career, getting an education, your ability to learn and connect with people actually can correspond to the distance you are from your phone. And so if you choose to put away your phone, especially at night before you go to bed, and especially in social situations, your ability to connect with people is just going to go through the roof. So I would recommend having a spot to put it away before you go to bed, as well as if you're in a social situation, just keep it in your pocket. Don't pull it out. Don't put it next to you, because by default, you're just going to want to pick it up and grab it. And so you lose some of that one-on-one connection with people. Those are my recommendations to answer your question.
Perfectly fine. I mean, I love that because, again, I look at some of the most successful entrepreneurs that we've kind of encountered. I sometimes ask them about their routines and how they try to balance these sort of things or take advantage of certain little hacks of life, where they can. And one of the ones that is like, yeah, your mental health is key. And so your phone is somewhat of a conduit for both the positive and the negative. So when you want to take advantage of those moments where you don't need that, you want to fully take advantage. So one of the things I've heard is like, really, if you want the bedtime phone to stop, like put it away, like in a drawer where it's like really, it takes your brain some considerable energy to like open the drawer and turn it over or like things like that. So, I fully agree with that, especially as you're moving into a transition of away from this kind of garden rose community, however you want to put it, but it's a wall of like, your school is somewhat different than the actual open and vastness that is the entirety of the internet in the world. You're getting that both, but it's like when you're in high school and school, there is somewhat of a subtle walled garden that is your schooling, and that it, in most cases, in some cases, that you can have bad apples in that garden that you're getting cyberbullied, and we will get into that. But I touch upon the mental health side to ask you, especially particularly the anxiety and disconnection tied to using your screen, is like, what is one subtle sign someone might not realize is actually caused by too much phone or social media time?
We talk about and throw around this word dopamine all the time. And I think pop culture has made it some sort of a play word, almost as if when you go on your screen, you're getting dopamine, or I need more dopamine, so I need my phone. And to answer your question, I would say, are monotonous and boring tasks during the day boring, or are they giving you a sense of satisfaction? What happens when we use too much screen time? And the national average for teens is around 6 hours and 40 minutes a day.
Yeah.
When we use too much screen time, our brain keeps telling ourselves, oh my gosh, we keep getting these higher and higher doses of dopamine, of satisfaction, of, hey, that was good, let's do it again. So we keep needing higher and higher doses. And so why that's a problem is because when you need higher and higher instant gratification doses of dopamine, the mundane tasks of every day, like a conversation or playing a sport or reading a book or doing a musical instrument, they're boring. They're not as exciting because it takes work. It takes effort, structure, it takes grit. Whereas a phone and social media and pornography is instant. And it doesn't take any of that action, doesn't take any of that drive. And so we live in a dopamine dense world.
Yeah.
If you feel like some of those tasks every day, like doing homework or reading a book, seem mundane and boring, maybe you should start limiting your screen time so that you can feel satisfaction and support when you do the chores or connect with someone, have a conversation.
Is that what you would call the mind virus idea that you've kind of talked about, or in your website as well? It's like this. Can you explain it in a way that hits home for someone who feels stuck scrolling?
Great point. Your mind is this malleable organ. I guess I'm no neuroscientist, but think of your mind as a giant lake. And each lake has docks for boats to get on and to go out. And so what happens in your brain's reward system is when you're constantly scrolling, you keep flooding the lake with boats or with dopamine. And what your brain does is it tries to regulate, it tries to get back to the homeostasis of the reward system. So it starts to shut off those docks. And so you keep needing more and more boats just so that you can fill in those receptors, even though the brain is saying, we're closing down the docks, no more. Yeah. And so if you keep scrolling, it's going to be an endless scroll because you have to just reach that tipping point.
Yeah.
The day before, you didn't quite get there because the dopamine wasn't quite high. So you're going to get to the next high. And so if you're scrolling and you find yourself keeping on wanting scrolling, my advice would be put it away, out of sight, out of mind.
Of course. Yeah.
Like you said, put it in a drawer, give it to a spouse even. Ooh, that could be.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, you're bringing up so many things that are like very helpful to those who are wanting, like we speak about, like wanting this kind of information and seeking it out. So it's really great that we're having kind of a one-to-one dialogue about these sort of little things that really do make a difference. And I go into now like the vice versa of like being the person that's scrolling versus being the person who's creating the content. And that's something that we all are kind of having to deal with, especially, in this dialogue itself. It's creating content and you yourself having to pitch what you're trying to promote, and that's creating content and having to speak out. So a lot of people are listening, want to grow their social media, but they also feel the burnout of it. How can someone create content without sacrificing their mental health?
It goes back to the point of active versus passive use of technology. Active use of technology is good. It's educational. You're watching a movie with your family. You're having family time. You're involved together watching a sport with your friends.
Yeah.
Passive use of technology is where you start to get some of those struggles with mental health. Mm-hmm. If you're scrolling or using your cell phone for over 3 hours a day or 3 hours of screen time, you're 3 times more likely to have depressive and anxiety-filled symptoms. And so number one, I would say lower your screen time, just anything you can do to stay off it. But also remind yourself when you're creating, that's active use of technology. When you're with your friends or watching a movie with your family, that's active use of technology. And technology isn't bad. I don't want to come across as the guy that just, I hate technology, I hate social media, I hate everything. No, the point is it connecting you or is it disconnecting you? Yeah. And what happens when we scroll is we're usually isolated. We're usually in our bed alone, usually in the corner, staying away from everyone. And isolation is the number one disease today. Yeah. Screens are fueling that. So active versus passive, which one do you find yourself on?
Yeah. And it's really great that we're talking about connection too. And I look at what we talked about off air is like I'm a father and a parent and someone it's as great as you who speaks to students. I love that kind of connection conduit person that you are. And I go into asking this because you have a unique perspective is what's something younger adults wish parents understood about social media and vice versa? What's something young adults might get wrong?
The parents we talk to, their jaws drop to the floor when we tell them how easily it is to access explicit content, to access pornography, or even just the social pressure of using social media.
Yeah.
What we do is we try to build education and we try to build understanding on what's happening around social media. So in the past 2 years, there's been a 9,000% increase in the amount of child exploitation content on social media. So what does that mean? From 2023 to 2025, the uploading and the viewership and the reports to the National Center of Exploitation has been increasing by 9,000%. And so when we help parents understand, look, you're giving your kid access to the cell phone and social media, we want you to understand some of the digital dangers because it's not like they're going to be perfect. They're going to get bit by the snake. They might see something bad. They might criticize someone else. They might be comparing themselves to someone who shouldn't be compared to. And so we try and help parents understand, okay, here's the baseline, here's the foundation, here's what's actually going to happen if you hand your kid a smartphone with social media.
Yeah.
So building that understanding and then saying, okay, what are some tips and tricks for you to manage? What can you do? Can you sit next to your child while they scroll? Can you sit next to their child while they post? Can you watch a few videos with them? How can you be a part of that process as to teach and understand what's going on with your child as they're online?
I love that. It's really, again, I go back to a lot of us come down to the idea, or I like to distill it down. It's like, we don't know what we don't know. And so I try to take advantage of opportunities of growth by listening to experts, by listening to professionals. And so as someone who has communicated with the, school kids and young adults and everyone that has come across your path, I find it very important. It's like, we have to have these kind of open conversations and dialogues to allow ourselves to really like, hey, this is what I'm feeling about A, B, and C. And if we can come to a solution, because I know that you're going to be around it, I know that you're going to be surrounded by it, but if we can come up with something together that we can all fall back onto, this is the right route, then yeah, like, let's go about it. And if there's a problem or a hiccup, let's address it together. And then that way we are all back on the same page again. So I, have this communication with my wife about a lot of these things, especially with our son. And it is something that, we can fall back on, especially in the harder times. Like, hey, we decided and we are agreed that A, B, and C. So, it's falling outside of A, B, and C. Let's make sure A, B, and C. So I thank you for, giving me that insight and sharing that with us today. I do love getting into the weeds with my guests and getting into the certain things, especially in our conversation here. I would love to understand your relationship with your phone as it is today. Are there any apps that you have on your phone that you think are really key things for people to check out? Or are there any habits that you have in your daily routine that you think people should probably try out?
Great point. I would say there's three big things you're going to want to do. Number one, try and grayscale your phone. I'm sure you've heard of this before.
Ooh, yes, I have.
On accessibility on your iPhone or on your smartphone, that you can actually gray out your screen, and all the apps and everything that you do on your phone turns gray, and it's boring, but it's supposed to be boring. And that just gets rid of some of the flashing lights that say, pick me up, pick me up, pick me up. So number one, try and grayscale your phone. And we could find that through settings. And I don't know the exact process, but it's been
definitely a setting in the brightness or in one of the other sub settings. Go find it. But the main point is there is a setting that is definitely going to gray you out. And I've also heard, I think for Apple users, there is a setting where it like simplifies everything, all the apps. Like essentially, it's just like a one click, everything turns to basically a readout situation.
Yes. Thank you. As far as the logistics of that, I'm not the professional.
No, just Google it. You will get to the menu. I promise.
And number two would be have a partner or someone to keep you accountable. That's the best thing that we found is you have a spouse or a friend that says, okay, hey, let's put it down. Let's go outside. Let's go on a walk. Let's connect.
Yes.
So that's number one. Number two. Number three is you have to have the 30 and 30 habit. Now, what does that mean? You have to put your phone outside your bed, outside your bedroom even, 30 minutes before you go to bed and put it away.
Nothing.
Wind down and then go to sleep with your phone outside your bedroom. And then when you wake up, try and spend 30 minutes of just you time or family time before you go to your cell phone. So that 30 before and 30 after rule tends to help us, me and my wife, as we try and become digitally deliberate.
I love that. I feel like a little bit of like, yes, I'm on the same path. There are definitely things that we're doing similar, and we understand that, our son is growing in a different time than us. Now we want him to have full advantage of that technology, but we want it to be something deliberate, like you said, and making sure that it is something educational too. And so we, when he is on a screen or a technology thing that, I'm making sure too, for myself, it's like there are parental controls. Now I understand it may be daunting or a task for some, but it's a relief for me, at least as a parent, where it's like, I know that the bumpers are on the rails here for him, so that at least I have some semblance of like knowing, at least for now, because he's 5 years old, it's like, as he moves forward, maybe I'll take some of those bumpers down because we've communicated, you need to understand A, B, and C. So it's like, I will always try my best to make sure my son has full advantage of the things that he's going to take advantage for his own success. And that is something that I want to share as far as like how I want to my son to grow up. That is definitely the route I'm going in. So thank you for sharing your little habits that you continue to do so with your own family. That's really cool.
So you seem like a great dad. So you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, man. Now, I typically lean towards the future when it comes to the end of our conversations as we progress forward into this. So I would love to understand when you say living beyond the screen, what does that actually look like in real life for someone in their 20s and 30s, living in the busy digital world? I know there is a spectrum of this. You know, some might say fully off. You know, maybe some might go the route of what your father challenged you with, just trying the flip phone method. And you know, there's such a wide variety of things. But I would love your opinion, just what you see in the future.
If you've ever been to a funeral, you know that when that person is recognized, they have so many amazing things that people characterize them in. For example, I went to my wife's grandfather passed away last year, and so we went to his funeral, and just the things that people said about him, how he connected with people, how he loved people, how he smiled at people, he gave them hugs and kisses, and all of these things that were described weren't the amount of followers or weren't the amount of presence he had online.
Yeah.
And my thought of living beyond the screen is living a life that is purpose-filled and connecting with people. And sometimes that can be on technology. You call a friend, you FaceTime a family member, you get connected with your grandpa who's in a different state.
Yeah.
The majority of the time, it just happens when you set the phone aside and you look at the person across the table in the eye, and you tell them how much you love them. You let them know you're thinking about them, and you're just there being present. And that's what living beyond the screen is. In a look down world, how do you look up and look around and find the people that are on the wayside? How do you bring them into your circle? That's what living beyond the screen looks like.
I very much enjoy that sentiment. That is something that is truly beautiful. As someone who's lost both of their grandfathers, and one of them being the, you know, kind of founding rock of the bedrock that is this podcast, because he taught me a lot about storytelling. It is truly remarkable, like in their passing, some of the things that I went through as far as hearing the words from others about my own, you know, family member. And loss is never easy, but having those words and having those stories brought me joy, comfort, and solace in that hard times, because I don't know where I would have been without them, because it does really, you know, it brings that level of like, oh, he's gone, but he's not forgotten. He's loved, he's remembered. And that is something that I want that as well. I want that for a lot of people as they, you know, pass from one phase of life to the next. And so that is really such a beautiful sentiment that you've provided us. I do want to ask you one personal question. And working with your father, you know, it's so incredible that you found such a connection with yours and relating on these sort of things. Nowadays, you know, what are your conversations like with your father? And, you know, what is something that is, you know, a monumental thing that you guys do on a daily regular? Is it a phone call? Is it seeing each other, going to lunch, something like that? Because I find myself wanting more presence with my own father. And, you know, I don't know. I know it takes effort, but I do know I would love just somewhat of a what you have with yours. So if there's something that you do, I would love to hear that.
No, it is a phone call. We're in different states, and he's in Arizona, and I'm now up in Utah, and it is a phone call. And I think sometimes I don't do a good job of keeping it something other than business, if I could be honest. But
yeah,
I would say the times we've had good connection was the times when we talked about something other than work. And it's family life. It's how was this presentation, or how did the kids react when you went to their school, or just the things that go beyond business. And I think that's where real trust and connection is built, is the deep feelings and the deep questions that bring up the things we are passionate about. My dad's very passionate about helping people. So I consistently ask him, what are you doing here? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And he loves to chat about it. So finding people's passions and then learning how to ask them about them.
You see, that's something that I also would like to, and you just kind of brought it to my attention. It was like, are you more apt to asking him for help rather than him kind of be like, hey, is there something on your mind? Or hey, this is what I'm seeing or something like that? Because I think that's where I was just like, how do you open up? Like, that's more of the question of like, how do you guys open up to each other? Is he more open to you or are you more open to him? Because I think for me, it's going to be I'm going to be the more one to kind of open up and start the conversation.
I think it is me. My dad's very busy, but every time I call him, he's always present with me, and he's a jokester too. So yeah, it's always me asking him advice and questions.
Okay.
And Dad, what do I do here? Because he is such an experienced man. I look up to him, but yeah,
that's great.
He asking for help.
Perfectly fine, and that's definitely somewhat of what I was kind of intending that to be, because I look at my father and our relationship, and a lot of that was more of me asking for guidance. And as I've grown up and kind of started my own family, I've found myself a little bit more trying to figure it out on my own, because I look up to him so much. And when he was growing up, he never really, he didn't have a lot of opportunity to ask for help. So he, to me, was Superman figuring it all out. And that relationship of seeing him do it, and some, most of the time succeed, most of the time work hard to succeed. That's what I was like, idolized. I was like, I want that. And he figured it out. And so now I'm like, dude, is that the right way? So I'm questioning. So that's where, I do appreciate you letting me know that you are more open to asking your father for guidance. And that does track, and I really do appreciate it. I do want to also ask you, because I want our audience to know that, did you finish the book? There was a moment there that I saw in the podcast. I was like, he's writing a book, and I wanted to know, it was December of that conversation of last year. Did you finish it?
Correct. Yes, it's called The 10 Laws of Screen Management. Mm-hmm. My dad wrote it, and it's just on Amazon now.
Perfect.
Yes.
That's awesome. Is there an openness to want to write more in the similar fashion of fiction or nonfiction? Maybe go a different route of maybe kids book, like a kind of illustrated book, maybe?
I've always loved writing, and I think it's been something I've hidden a little bit, because it's kind of weird sometimes, but I love writing, and
it's beautiful.
Has instilled that passion in me, and so I do. I would love to write for the rest of my life.
Awesome. Well, I hope that you get that opportunity, and you will, if you continue to talk and do all of these things. I know that you're going to have a collection of really great stories, and I hope that what you will do is take a moment and allow yourself to really live in those, kind of write it down, live in those emotions, and really allow yourself to collect them over time. And I know that a person like yourself who does monitor that kind of stuff, after a certain period, I think you're going to have a wonderful book, or just at least an idea of one that you can really sink your teeth into and take some time on.
Oh, thank you, Jose.
Yeah.
All these stories.
Oh, thank you.
Compile them and make it all.
I tell this joke to some of the guests. I'm like, I do feel like a librarian of sorts, of like, I have assortment of really wonderful people and stories, and I do treasure them all. And I really want to be the person where it's like, hey, I'm looking, I feel this, I'm looking for that. And I'd be like, yes, I got your person. Come here. I want that feeling all the time. So I do allow you to let everyone know where they can find you online. So the floor is yours. Promote. And where can people see you and find you?
You can find us on Instagram. Follow us at screen_guys. Or you can just visit our website at screenguy.com. Book us to speak. We'd love to come to your school, your community, and help out in any way we can. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Talmage, you are a wonderful fella, and I do have an outro for ourselves, so you can listen to every episode of our podcast at findingarizonapodcast.com. Easy to find on social media. We're Finding Arizona Podcast under everything. And last but not least, we end every conversation with the kisses, hugs, and belly rubs to our four-legged friends, and we